Ladies and gentlemen, we do have more of a full house than we usually have tonight, but that's good. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting here, and it's April 7th, 2015, and would everyone please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Trustee LaRue and Supervisor Limata are absent and excused this evening. Trustee Pompo?
Here.
Trustee Durant?
Here.
Trustee Truscott?
Here.
Treasurer Johnson? Here. And Clerk Rattari is here. Manager Gerard, staff present is Manager Gerard, the Township Attorney Roger Zappa, and John Marks from ZBA is here. And Superintendent of Public Works Kirk Page is here. He snuck in the back on me. At this point, we will have to pick a chair of the meeting. So
I'll make a motion to have Treasurer Johnson chair the meeting. Support.
Okay, motion and a second. Any comment?
Can I comment?
You can. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer Johnson, you have the gavel. You are now the chair of the meeting.
Thank you. One of these days, someone else is going to have to take a shot at this and that. So, okay, moving on, we have the consent agenda. The next item up. Consent agenda is those items that takes no action. It's just there for administrative looking at. And consent agenda consists of the road committee agenda for April 7th and the draft minutes from March 3rd, the wastewater treat facility advisory board minutes of March 19th, the fire department officers meeting minutes of March 2nd, and the draft minutes of March 9th, and the water production report of February 2015. Correspondence not requiring board action are the correspondence with Charter Communications and the Department of Lansing and Regulation Affairs liquor license application, and bills payable in the amount of $225,676.73, and the financial statements for February 15th and the Treasurer's report for February 15th. Is there any item that the board would like to pull out for further discussion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
A motion to approve and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. On the agenda, next item up. Do we have any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept it?
Just move it a little bit closer.
I was trying to be quiet. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. A motion made in support for the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda will stand as set. Next item is public comment. Anyone that has public comment, now would be the time to address us and give your name and address.
Do I understand you're going to talk about roads?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kathy Peters. I live at 600 Brickyard Road. That's the west end of Brickyard Road on the north side of the highway. We don't have any public sewer or water on that road. We do have electricity, if that makes a difference. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
on.
About half of that road was improved. I don't know what year that was, but up to where Trustee Peterson's house was. And so that section of the road has proper ditching and in very good condition. Beyond that, the road is falling apart. I now own waterfront property on my side of the road. My side, we have property on the south side of the road, and we have some waterfront property because the culvert is blocked. And so instead of having the water go from the south side of the road to the north side of the road, which it should do, it just stays there on my side. And that's not helping the road condition one bit. The other item is that I live at the end of that plowed road, and the county plow actually uses about the first acre of my land. So my front yard is where the snow plow deposits all the snow it wants to, and the garbage truck turns around. So the other thing is that my neighbor gets some of the gravel from that area. They did throw some gravel in there, but that's ended up on my neighbor's lawn. I don't have a lawn. I think if they're going to do any kind of improvement on that road, they need to consider a proper turnaround so that there is a place for cars to properly turn around and park. Inasmuch as part of that property beyond where I live, to the west of our house, is going to be a preserve. We do have people parking on the road to go back in there and hike and snowshoe. So those are the three items that I think I wanted to bring up.
Any other public comment? Not? Okay.
I'm Brian Savalena with UP Engineers and Architects, and just want to let you know that myself and Matt Trado are here to comment on any questions that may come out of either one of the public hearings. Anything else associated with the roads?
Thank you, Brian. Being no more public comment, we'll move on to board member comments. Come on. Just your name and address, please.
My name is Christopher Ray. It's 1912 Waldo Street. It's a dead end of Waldo at Badger Creek. I came home a week ago, just over a week ago, and the new street light that they put up at the end of the dead end is incredibly bright. My entire house is now lit up. My entire front lawn is bright as can be. It's a great concern of mine for many reasons, more reasons than I want to take your time for. My feeling is that it should be relocated. The street lights that are there's one that's about 25 yards away, and it's not as bright. It's the older model, of course. The new LED lights, I know that they've been improved and as far as efficiency and will be a greater savings, maybe a good idea. But they're just really, really bright. My entire yard and my entire garden is completely lit up. I have not been without light. It's pretty much 24/7. And I get up in the late at night and go out, and it just feel like I'm in a football stadium. So that's quite disturbing to me, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. And if I feel that you're gonna change out the lights, the old ones with these new models, it should be reconsidered because they're just way, way too bright. I know if you were to move this one down and replace it with the old one that's 25 yards away, then the people there would be really distraught also. It was my neighbors that came up to me during the day when I got home that said, hey, they've got this crazy street light at the end of the block now. So everybody on the block is not real happy about it. If it were for security reasons, I live in Trowbridge because I don't want to live in a big city with big bright lights. So it's a concern that I think should be thought out and really considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments on the public comments? Okay, we'll move on to board comments. Board member comments?
A couple things to share, if I may.
Okay.
I did not get to the Planning Commission last meeting because I was at the governor's conference for tourism in Grand Rapids for my business. But a couple things I did want to share with you that I picked up there is that the budget for Pure Michigan right now is $29 million a year. And I believe, I was just trying to check my emails too, I think it's either gone up to $50 million this year or will go up to $50 million. I think that's been passed. And the good news about that, although that's a lot of money to be spending on tourism, the return on investment for every dollar that the state puts in to Pure Michigan for tourism returns $6.87. So although we are contributing 29 million, multiply that times 687, that's the return that Michigan is getting. And for this year alone in 2015, they expect the highest tourism in the state in 25 years. So for me, that's good news, I guess. For the whole community, it is. But even in 2014, the state was up 4.3% in tourism. And we now have over 150 breweries in this state. So whether that's contributing to it, I'm not sure, but keep them coming. I did get the packet for the last planning meeting, too. And the lighting ordinance was discussed in the meeting that I missed. Maybe that's a meeting, if people have issues with lighting, maybe that's something that you should attend. Our planning meeting will be tomorrow night. It's usually every other week in relation to the board meeting, but in this case, because of the way the weeks fell, the planning meeting will be tomorrow night. And we do have a draft ordinance. It's primarily for business, commercial, and subdivisions, but it does apply to some of it. Some of the general standards will apply to general residential dwellings too. And I have a copy of that, and I'm sure they have one in the office too if anybody'd like to look at it. But we've been talking about this quite a while. So if anybody has any input or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I can give you a copy of this, or 7 o'clock tomorrow night right here is the planning meeting. So I did want to share that. And we do have Dairy Queen coming. It should be, I think, did they say August it should be done? I'm not sure exactly of the date. That'll go right out in front of Target. So that's going to be a nice addition to the township. And they're calling it Dairy Queen Fast Grill and Chili. So I don't know if they have different types of restaurants in their chain, but it's just a little 900 square foot building. And we'll have a drive-through, of course. And then tomorrow night, besides talking about the lighting at the Planning Commission, we will have preliminary review on a site condominium, just a 3-unit proposal in Badger Hill. That's going to be tomorrow. We're going to talk about the road project, which we will do here too tonight. And I think that's about it. So I just wanted to give you those updates a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, any other board member have a comment? Clerk Guattari?
Yesterday was your last day to register for the May election, so unfortunately, if you have not, you cannot vote in this May election. I will be here in the Township Hall May 2nd from noon to 2, that's a Saturday, to take and give out any absentee ballots for that May election. And I believe that's all I have.
No other comments from the board. We'll move on to the public hearings. And the first one up is the local road rehabilitation project. This was called because we had a problem with money because of the tax tribunal and that. We're short a little over $2 million. And we know we went out to the people and explained best what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it in the time frame, using the dollars we had projected at that point in time. But with the tax tribunal rulings, we've dropped a little over $2 million. So now we have to figure out how we're going to do it and still meet all the needs of the township and the roads and that. So that's why we had a public hearing. Now this is a time for anyone that'd like to have any comments on the public hearing on roads. If you'd step to the podium and give us your comments on that so we can move forward in that.
So public hearing is open at 7:15.
Roger Berry, 205 Huron Woods. I've given a bit of thought to this road business, and some of the things that come to mind is that, one, the plans you had for the roads can't be done now with the amount of funding that has to be cut back, at least not according to your plans. And when this kind of thing happens, the tendency often is to say, well, we're going to go ahead and do this. We'll figure out some way to do it. And that's not a good way to do it. It needs to be examined, in my opinion, over in a new way. Now, we had a lot of hard work done by the people on the road commission and the staff here at the township, and I'm certainly not going to criticize any of that. I had no intention of doing that. One thing that I never liked about the road business was borrowing so much money and paying that off over 15 years. And, you know, there's the old-fashioned way to do it, and that is to do it piecemeal as the funds are available to take care of it. And I know there was a lot of interest in doing it in 2 or 4 years or whatever it was to get it all done. And I would suggest thinking about approaching it with, instead of borrowing the funds, take care of it as the funds come in. And you can do a lot better planning on that because you know what to expect. So the other thing is, it's not necessarily going to occur, in my opinion, that you can do all of the roads in the township, seal them up and get them prepared. Like where I live on Huron Woods, we don't need that road redone. There are other ones in the township that certainly are important to have done. So these are some thoughts I wanted to throw out to you. And for myself, I appreciate all the work people have done working to do something about roads, because the roads are something I think most of the people in the township would agree need to be worked on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to?
Good evening. My name is John Smythe. I live at 225 Huron Woods, part of the Huron group today. And going through where we get funds, shortfalls. The one thing here, we've probably all seen this. Most of the 1.2 billion in new monies would go to county and city roads. Question is, how's that plowed back into the township? I know we've relinquished a lot of our work now to, through the road commission has given it back and said, here, you take care of it. So I guess that's what started the whole thing as far as the committee for road improvements here in Marquette. I agree with what Roger's saying. If you can pay it as you go, it's a lot better than having all these big bonds out here. We supported the original bond issue came. We're concerned about the bond proposal now from the state and all the money that's going to be affect us all, and how many people buy into that. That's the question. So I'm supporting Roger, what he's saying. We need more involvement from you folks, and we as the residents understand the big loss of the tax tribunal. From that standpoint, we support what you guys have done so far with the road commission fundings and so on. But we're saying, okay, you've done your job, and now you got this thing thrown back at you, saying, hey, we don't have enough money. So what do we do, in a sensible manner? And that's what, we need to take a little bit of time and revalue where we are on the thing. So I don't have much more to say, but I agree with what Roger says about chipping our street. You know, we're a new development. Our roads are still basically in some decent shape. They've been patched as far as with the sealer and stuff. Seems to be holding up, and you know, delay our end and let somebody else in the township that's roads are in a lot worse shape than ours. You don't have the money, so it's you got a big task ahead of you. So again, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay. See no one else? Board members at this point in time? Or should we have Brian come up and do a quick review for everybody? Would you like to?
Maybe suggest you finish the public hearings and then come back
Okay.
to discussions. Take the public input and then you can respond to that.
Is there any more public input? If not, then we will close the public hearing on road rehabilitation project. And at that point in time, we'll go for the board members.
Or we got to do the water and wastewater one, then we would,
Are we going to do them both at
Yeah,
one
we'll-
after another?
yeah. We'll do that. There are two public hearings together. So we'll open one, close it, which we just did on the roads. We'll open the SRF application for the water and wastewater, take comment for that. Then we'll close that again, and then we'll take other comment after that.
Okay,
Yes.
Manager Gerard.
Now, and if I may, just to clarify why we're having these two public hearings, is because they are companion issues. At your last meeting on March 17th, UPEA made a proposal for consideration, basically, that if we were to be doing some subsurface utility work, extending water, let's say water utilities, to some of the areas where these road repairs are being done, under the DWRF, Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, or the sewer fund, basically revolving loan fund, that project would replace part of that road, which would reduce the cost of the millage. So that's the reason we're having these public hearings tonight. To apply for either the DWRF or the SRF, you have to have this public hearing by this date to be able to apply, and it's about a year-long process. So that's why we're having the public hearing tonight. We're not saying we're going forward with a utility project or a water project or a sewer project or anything like that, but we want to have that option available as we go forward in the funding process. So that's why we're having the hearing.
Okay, now we'll open the hearing for the water and wastewater SRF applications. So we'll take any public comments at this point in time. Being there's no comments from the public, we'll close the public hearing. And now we'll move forward and comments from the board in that. Board members.
Okay. Obviously, I missed the last two meetings, so I wasn't here, but I watched them a couple of times each time on YouTube, just to get a feel for what's going on. I'm concerned. I think the biggest concern I have is a comment that the council made concerning the fact that we have changed the scope of the millage. I know there's roads that have been removed. My biggest concern is the fact that people probably voted for millage if their road was being repaired, with the idea their road was being repaired, and now through the loss of money, we're not being able to do there. So is that legally right as far as the millage? Because we've now changed the millage question. I think that's one of my biggest concerns right now. As well as I understand, and I realize we have lost money, and I wouldn't want to see us change any of the construction ideas for the roads. In other words, if we're supposed to have a reconstruction, I don't want to see us say, well, we can't afford reconstruction, so we're going to do just a top seal, and that's not the whole purpose of this millage. The whole purpose of this millage was to get our roads back to a 20-year reliability, so we wouldn't have to worry about our roads. So I wouldn't want to see us skimping on anything, and in order for us to do that, obviously, we're going to have to remove some roads or some projects or change the scope of the project. I understand we have the revolving fund for that money we can get from the sewer and water revolving fund. Unfortunately, the problem with that is we now are running into, again, another loan. We seem to have a lot of loans. I'm sorry, I don't know if, with our uncertainty with the tax tribunal or whatever, exactly where we're going to be standing 4 years down the road with all these loans. I don't want to see us get to the point where we're going to be cutting our services because we can't afford to make our payments to our loans. I think we need to re-examine this whole issue. And I realize that it was, we thought we were doing great, and if things would have been perfect, we would have been in a great position. Unfortunately, things have changed. So I guess my first question would be to council, is what we're doing legal, or do we need to now go back and either redo the millage proposal for another vote?
I'm make just a quick comment okay. The reason we're going through this process is to give the board a whole bunch of information and a number of options on your plate. Obviously, we don't want to go forward with the project as we originally planned it. We can't. We're about $2.5 million short. The question now is that the board is struggling with, and we're utilizing UPEA, as well as Roger and several others, is to put the board in a position where you can make a decision. And basically, you have several different options. One is to simply not levy the millage, basically, because we can't afford the project anymore, so scrub it. That's one option. The UPEA has been working on a couple of other options, and one of those options is doing what we can do with the 1.5 mils, what it'll generate over the 15 years, if that's acceptable to the board. Another option is go back to the voters in August, which we've been talking about, because we missed the May. Now, the question came up about the millage vote that's coming up, the governor's program. That's going to have an impact on it. If that passes, we won't see any road funds for the first 2 years. It won't be until year 3 that road funds get applied, any dollars get spent on roads. Then that'll be going through the road commission, and we're on a 60-40 basis with the road commission. We'd still be responsible for 60% of the construction costs. So what we're trying to do is to put all this information out there in front of the board members and the public, basically, about the options that we're looking at. And one of those options is we can't do the project. I mean, that is one of the options. And I agree fully with Dan. When we had the meetings, we had 15 separate public meetings, basically, and told the people, here's what we're doing, folks. This is what we're doing. Here are the maps. We're doing this in 15, 16, 17. And on that basis, it was approved. We do have some concerns about the legality, basically, and Roger's been looking at that, and I'll give it to him here in just a second. But really, it's going to be up to the residents of the community what we do. Are they willing to go forward with the 1.5 mils for 15 years, generating about $5 million, and do as many roads as we can? That will mean what Dan just brought up. It'll mean some of the roads that we looked at as full reconstructs, maybe we can't do as a full reconstruct. We can do portions of it where there's underlayment that's damaged or impacted by water or whatever, as Kathy was referring to. We may do more chip seals as opposed to surface. Those are all options that we're looking at in terms of being able to fix the roads, because nobody else is going to do it. I mean, legislators have told us if the governor's proposal doesn't pass, there is no plan B. I don't believe that for a second. If that is the case, then we need new people in Lansing. So we have a plan B. Our residents stepped up and said, we'll give 1.5 mils. Why doesn't the governor just match that? We can do our full project. So it doesn't have to be an income tax increase or a sales tax increase or anything else. There are other options available. So I'm going to throw it to Roger, but that's what we're trying to do, is get all that information out there to the public, to the board members, to say, here are the options that we've got. What do we want to do?
Okay. Clerk Rotari.
I'm going to change the microphone so Roger can get on the tape here.
Here. You want mine?
Yeah.
In the meantime,
Well,
trustee.
and I agree with Manager Gerard from to that standpoint also. But again, we're not going to. The first 2 years, we're going to see no money at all for the roads after this millage goes through. And even after those first 2 years, when we were downstate, my question is just how much money is going to actually come back to the townships, and I have to believe that we're going to see most of this money for the major highways. I don't think you're going to see any money coming back into the township. In fact, the way I look at it was they're going to simply say, well, hey, you got money for the roads, so we're going to put this money somewhere else where we don't have anybody doing the roads. So that's just my personal feeling. But again, if the legality of this whole issue is that we can't do what we're doing, there's no reason to go forward until we actually come back to the voters again. So to me, that's, I mean, we can sit and talk and discuss all the different processes, but if the legality is we have to go back as a vote because we're changing the millage, which, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would think if I was a resident, I would say, hey, I voted because you're fixing my road. Now you're not fixing my road, so I want my vote back. That, I guess, is something I have to ask.
That includes scaling back, doing things in different order, eliminating roads. Depending on what you choose, affects whether it may be legal or not legal. And at this point, the board hasn't really reached a consensus on what it wants to look at for an opinion on whether we can do that. Just in a nutshell, however, of general topics of what we can do, the way the ballot language was worded was essentially, it was for the purpose of repairing, maintaining, and improving roads designated in the Marquette Township Local Roads Rehabilitation Schedule adopted by Marquette Township, and other road repair, maintenance, and improvements within the township as prioritized by the Marquette Township Board. So the Township Board has some authority, even under the millage proposal language, certainly to change the order. For example, if it makes sense, if there are drinking water revolving fund monies available and received, to maybe do roads A, B, and C in year 1 instead of year 3, or vice versa. That clearly is not going to violate the millage proposal. There are some options there. To change the scope even of what repair or maintenance gets done on each road, there is probably some considerable latitude there as well. Where I'm a little bit more troubled is it makes specific reference to improving, let's see here, repairing, maintaining, and improving local roads designated in the Marquette Township Local Roads Rehabilitation Schedule. So if we start eliminating any work on certain roads, then I think that's potentially problematic depending on what we're looking at. But I think that could be argued to be a violation of what was voted upon. So I know this sounds like a lawyer answer to some extent, that it depends, but it does depend on what you decide to do, and you do have some latitude to make some adjustments in it, and we'll have to take a look at that and scrutinize it very closely as we move along with this. And it might be that what the options are, as you mentioned, Trustee Pompo, that maybe it doesn't make sense for us to be doing putting Band-Aids on potholes and seal coating instead of a complete reconstruction. So depending on what makes the most sense, it might be that I'm sure we could afford to seal coat all the streets, but that isn't a satisfactory solution. So then we'll have to look at what does make sense, and maybe that will require going back to the voters and reevaluating where we go from here with the millage. But you do have some latitude in making some movement and some adjustments and still be in compliance with that ballot proposal, in my opinion.
First of all, we don't own the roads in the township. The road commission owns the roads. So the township board charged the road committee to work on it, to think about what they could do. And I think they did a great job thinking outside the box and coming up with the idea of getting all the roads fixed in 3 years and paying for it with the millage. I'm one of those people who doesn't like to go to the bank either and ask for money. I want to just do it when I can afford it, and that's pretty much the way we run our business too. But in a scope this large, I think they did a great job of trying to earmark what has to be done and how. They spent, I don't know how many hours figuring out which road needed to be recoated, which one had to be torn up, which one had to have potholes fixed. You know, they went down, if you've seen any of this literature, there's pages and pages of spreadsheets detailing when and how each road would get done. So on the flip side of this now, we have the legislators saying we have to raise taxes, state sales taxes, to fund the state's roads. I don't buy it for a second either. I've been wrestling with this and reading articles and online, and I talked to the lieutenant governor, and I tried to get the governor's office today, and nobody answered the phone. Because what I was told years ago when I first got on this board was that there is dedicated money in the gasoline sales tax for roads. And as far as I know, that's not being done. The lottery money is supposed to be going to schools. It's going in the general fund. I mean, you could just list a number of ways the state is playing with the money. And if you look at the actual, what they want to do in May, what they're voting on, there's 8 different public acts that are involved in this. It's ridiculous. If you can even figure it out, you're lucky. There was a wonderful analysis, and I can't even remember who, that I just read online. I think it was on YouTube. From, I believe he was a reporter. I don't have to dig that up. And he explained every one of these and how this is a fallacy. And the problem is they're just playing with the money. One of the questions I asked the lieutenant governor in January was the school system has always said that they were going to be made whole when the tax tribunal issue hit. And I asked him point blank, I said, how much of this 1 cent or 1% for the sales taxes is going to the schools to make them whole because of the tribunal issues? I didn't get an answer. Whether he didn't understand it, didn't know the question, didn't know the answer, I don't know. I mean, we were kind of talking in passing. But I questioned him about this dedicated money. I said, there's already money that should be dedicated in the gasoline tax for roads that is not getting there. It's been said it's not getting there. How can you guarantee me that this money, if we raise these taxes, because it's going to affect everybody, every business, every entity in this state, that that's actually going to go to roads? Or is that a fallacy too? I didn't get an answer on that either. And again, we weren't in a setting where he could come down and give me a bunch of statistics or references, but I said, who can I talk to? So I didn't get an answer there either. That's why I tried the governor's office today. So I encourage you to look this up before you vote. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of reading. And the reason that the township took this on is because the state has no money, the road commission has no money for repairing our roads. And we have had how many public forums and meetings and at the fire hall, everywhere. And you told us you wanted your roads fixed. That's what we're here to do. We're here to do what you want us to do. So we've spent a year and a half working on this. This is what we came up with. Through no fault of our own, the scope has changed. But what I'm worried about is that you're going to change your mind about this project because of this. And I don't want the two to get confused. I think we need to do what we have to do, whether it's to continue the project or not. I'm not saying I've even decided how I feel about that, but we need to figure out what's best for us. And with the work that UPEA has done and the road committee and Superintendent Page, I think we could put this project together and get it done, for the most part, the way it was intended, because the asphalt prices are really low. It's, the contracting rates are very low. UPA has presented us with some great options. The idea with using the utilities is that if we do part of the road project that entails infrastructure underneath, and again, that does mean more loans, that's half of the roads taken care of, and then the township takes care of the rest. So there's a partnering there that we can undertake that will maybe take up that 2 million that we're lacking. I don't know. It may get down to contractor rates being less, gravel rates being less, flag people, just like the project we're going to look at later, maybe the flagmen. I mean, again, I'm not saying we need to definitely do this, but I'm leaning that direction because we can't wait for Lansing. We've got a really good idea in place, but we need more information before we go anywhere. And I think EA will probably have it for us tonight. Again, it's not, yes, we're going to decide this tonight or tomorrow. We wanted your input, have you understand where we're coming from, why we did this, and maybe we will end up putting it off. It's hard to say. But your input is more important than anything, because this is your project. It's your tax dollars. We're your board. We need to do what you want to do. That's it.
Other board members? Secretary.
The only thing I have to say is on the timelines, if we do decide to go back to the millage or to the voters for a new millage or additional millage, there is a August election that I found out a few weeks ago. That deadline is about in the middle of May, so you don't have long to get a ballot proposal for that. And we can also call special election in November, but that deadline will be in the middle of August. So whatever way we go, those are your deadlines that we're going to have to meet. And if we do call special election, maybe that's money well spent, in my opinion. If we can't get done what we're going to done, we'll have to present the real dollars, and the extra $3,000-4,000 it's going to cost for an election will probably be money well spent, in my opinion. But that's all I have on that.
I just wanted to say that I totally concur with Lynn, and that we are here for the people, and this is what you wanted in all the surveys and stuff, so that's why we're trying to do, like Lynn said, what you want. So, that's it.
My comments on it kind of follows with all the rest of them, that on doing piecemeal when funds become available. If you all know me, when you watch the meetings, I always ask where the money's coming from and how we're going to pay for it. That's what I always ask for in that, all the way through it. And we're at that point right now. Where's the money coming from, how we're going to get it, and that. So that's something that we as a board members are going to have to determine as we move forward on that. The other one on the county and the state, and as Lynn indicated, the county gets their money from the state. The county depends where they want to spend the money. We have very little say on it and that. Question was raised to the county road commission that if we went through with this project, all the way through with it, and part of it was maintaining it over the 15 to 20 years, what would they contribute? And to be honest with you, from what I understand, it got to be very silent from their part in time too. So we spent the money, we did the roads. Well, they got money. Where it's going to go probably will not be going into the township, and I have no problem saying that right out in front. That too, because we are part of the township, part of the county. We're one of the 19 townships in that they get money for. So that's a concern for myself, but I look at it, it'll benefit the township residents if this road project does go through and that. Tonight we're looking at trying to determine how we're going to move forward on all this and that. Our engineers have come up with some options for us to look at and that. We're not in a position to go or no go at this point in time. We're trying to get enough information to take the next step. We do have some guidelines that we have to look at. Part of it, as Lynn indicated, under the water on some of the grants we can apply for. If they're successful, part of the dollars for that water infrastructure or sewer infrastructure, whatever it is, will also pay to redo the roads when they have to dig it up. So it's a saving on the road side, but we still have to have some dollars to complete it in that. So on both sides, there is dollars that the residents will have to come up with in that. So I don't know which direction I'm going to go at this point in time. I've looked at everything that the engineers have come up with. They've come up with a very intelligent way of looking at this from when we originally set out to do everything, how to address it in a period of time that we want to go forward on that. So I would like to, at this point in time, there's no other questions, ask the Dan.
I just have one other comment. I want our roads fixed as well as any residents in the township does. I've driven through our roads as well as you have, and it's scary. I'm not going to argue that. But again, the fact that we're going to be, and I understand the idea of going through the revolving fund loan programs for a low-interest loan to do sewer and water projects to offset our roads is a great idea, except that my concern still is now we're borrowing more money for those funds. Would we have put that project in to start with? I mean, that wasn't even a scope of the project for the road committee prior to that point. So it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay, we're getting money to fix the roads from the revolving fund, but now we have to have a loan to pay it off. So, you know, I mean, to me, that's something I think we have to look very, very hard at. And again, that's not a guarantee that we're going to even get these loans. Again, I think with the uncertainty of our funding coming back to us, I think we need to be very diligent in looking at all options if we can even afford to even go any farther than this. And I think that's something, I know we're under a gun right now for figuring out when we're going to do a go or no go, and that's an unfortunate problem. But I think if we have to have special meetings or whatever to get into the discussion on this thing, I think it's, I think as stewards of the township, I think we need to look very, very hard at this loss of revenue for the township, and if we can even afford this anymore.
Manager Gerard.
Trustee Pompo is absolutely correct. When the subject of going with DWRF or SRF came up, that was one of my concerns. Is it dramatically increases the cost of the project, ultimately to the residents, because that's who's going to be paying for it over time. It expands it beyond 15 years. We've had the discussion with UPEA. They've been very diligent of coming up with options and with other types of ideas and impacts to be able to have us be able to go forward with the road project, because that's what we all want to do. We want to go forward with it. The very basic concern that the road committee members and staff had was, we've been very straightforward with the residents in the past on all of our millage questions. We've told them exactly what we were going to do, and that's what we did. And on that basis, I think there was support for this, because we told them this is a project we can do, and this is how we're going to do it. And they voted it in overwhelmingly, 75%. Now we find ourselves in a situation where we can't deliver that product. And the question is, what do we do now? One of the options that we have is do nothing in 2015. Go to the voters either in May or in August and ask them, here's what we can do. And that's what we're trying to do here, is come up for 1.5 mils. This is what we can do over that 3-year period to construction, and pay it off over the 15 years. You're not going to get a 25-year road out of it. You're going to get maybe a 15 or a 20-year road maybe, but it won't be the 25-year maintenance that we originally planned. Or we can do the original plan, but it's going to cost another 1.4 mils, because that's the number that's out there to generate the 7.5 million is 2.9 mils total over that 15-year period. Or we go for a 25-year period or whatever. But as you lengthen that period out, as Dan said, as you lengthen that period out, it costs you more money. You're rolling up interest, you're rolling up bonding costs. There was a question, Roger asked the question earlier on the pay-as-you-go, and I know Treasurer Johnson raised that as well. The reason we were avoiding the pay-as-you-go was we wanted to put a project together that we could accomplish in 3 years with one single mobilization. We get the contractor on site and they go from road to road to road to road to road, and you eliminate all those mobilization costs every time, moving equipment, moving people, everything else. Significant cost. On the positive side right now, because oil prices are down, gas prices are down, asphalt prices are down as well. And we're going to be asking you tonight, and you saw in my memo, we're going to be asking you to allow us to have UPEA put together bid packages so we can get out there and get some numbers, actual numbers back, and get some bids back, basically, and lock in some prices in case we go forward, which we probably will in some fashion, basically. But the whole thing is to get the information out to the residents so you understand where we're at and what we're dealing with. The Supreme Court, you may not know it, but the Supreme Court on April 1st of all days did come back and said, no, we're not going to reconsider your case. But if you look at the list of the cases they're taking, they have very, very minimal impact on the state as a whole. Very minimal. There are other reasons that they're not willing to talk about this case. And it gets back to what Lynn was talking about. It's how money is being allocated, how money is being spent, and how it's coming into the state, and who it's coming from, that I believe is having a significant effect on it not being looked at. But at any event, that money's gone. It's gone for good under Proposal A. It's not coming back. Those businesses have been reduced by 60% in their tax burden. Guess who gets it? The residential taxpayers. It's the only place it can come from, and you're seeing it in the one penny. I like the way they phrase it, the 1 penny increase. It's 1 penny on every dollar you spend. It's not just 1 penny. So, you know, the question came up about the Road Commission, what the Road Commission's going to be able to do. I'll tell you what the Road Commission's going to do with that $4 million they get 3 years from now. They're going to go on, first of all, the federal system because they get 100% reimbursement for that. They're going to go next on the state system because they get 80% reimbursement for that. And that'll be where the money goes. It will not go on our local roads. They'll do some pothole patching and everything else, and I'm not denigrating the Road Commission. That's a business decision that they make. That's where they get their money. Bread and butter. They get 60% from us. So, you know, that's what's going to happen. We will not see any of that money on our local roads, or very little of it. It'll probably be in snow plowing. Winter maintenance is where you'll see the benefit of that money, not in repairing the roads. So, that is where we're at. You know, Roger's analysis, I think, is correct. There is some flexibility in there that the board can make some changes and make some decisions, but if I'm Dan, and Dan voted for this millage because his road was going to get fixed, and now 3 years from now his road hasn't been fixed, does he have a claim against the township to get his tax money back? You know, I mean, you know, there are those issues that are out there. So we want to be forthcoming. We want to be upfront with the residents. This is where we're at. We have the 1.5 mills will generate approximately $5 million over that 15-year period. That's what we have to work with. The question is, do you want us to go forward and do as much as we can with that money, or do you want us to hold off in 2015, lose 2015, move it to a 16, 17, 18 project, go back to the voters and say, we have a choice, 1.5 mills, 2.9 mills, a smaller project or a complete project. You know, I favor that approach myself, is going back to the voters. I don't think it's critical that we lose 2015. We've already lost some of it, as it is currently. I've been honest with with the UPA folks. They've heard this every meeting we've been in. I don't want any voter to say they were cheated. You know, and I don't want the board to be in a position of having to look at the voters 2 years from now at election time and say, we promised you roads that you're not getting. You know, that's not going to be real popular. So I'm a proponent for going back to the voters in May if we can, and ask the question, do we go forward with the 1.5 mills, or do we increase the millage or extend the time frame? But I think we owe the residents the full package.
Clerk Rattari, or maybe this is legal, I don't know. What's our time frame? Do we have until the end of the year to decide if we're going to levy the millage, or do we have some cutoff? Because we've always just talked about the election part and going back to the voters. What's our responsibility to implement what we've already done?
Well, we cannot we can, if we choose not to implement the millage, we have that right. That's what we, if we didn't levy the millage, if we didn't do this project, that's what we would do. We would just basically not levy it. Correct, Roger?
That's correct. In fact, if you're not doing the project, if you're going to shelve the project, you can't levy the millage. You can't collect the money and use it for the fire department or for general operating expenses, for example. It's got to be specifically allocated to the purposes set forth in the millage. But you do have the option of simply not levying it.
Manager Gerard?
We do have a history of that. If you remember on the Werner Street project, that was a five-year payback. It was actually paid back in a little less than 5 years, about 4 years, and we took as we told the voters we were going to do, we took the leftover money and we did Brookton Road.
So we
So
don't have,
we had the option of not levying it or going forward with Brookton Road.
do we have to notify anybody, or I mean, because it was voter directed, we don't have any other obligations we have to meet. We can just not do it.
I think we would tell the residents that we're not going to levy
Right.
the millage,
So
certainly.
that when if we changed and actually went back in August on the ballot and said, we want to change this is what, we're not going to confuse them and make them think that this is the second one or an additional one. I just want to make sure all of our dots are crossed and Ts are dotted.
Secretary.
I guess my recommendation is if we were going to go for the August election, everything would have to be in by sometime early May, and that doesn't give us less than a month to do this, which doesn't really help folks getting the information out if we're going to redo this project. Your next window of opportunity would be the middle of August to get a special election in November, which we can call if we so desire for any local issues the township has. That deadline would be the middle of August. And that would probably be, I guess, my recommendation as clerk. If we're going to do anything, it's going to cost us a little bit more money, but I think it's money well spent to take a little bit more time and, go through this thing. And if we got to change anything, give us more time to do that. But that's your deadlines for future elections.
Trustee Pompey.
I would assume then that the board would make a motion not to collect the millage. That would be a motion made by the board if we so decided to put another millage out there. It would basically eliminate this millage completely.
The board has to take the action to actually implement the millage and that.
Correct. You would basically suspend the millage for 2015 pending the vote in August, and then decide where you were going depending on the results of that election. And if the voters say, no, let's leave it at 1.5 mils and make it 20 years instead, then you would start levying it in 16 and go from there. So you have a number of options ahead of you. The one thing that I would certainly recommend is that and it was in my memo, I would ask that the board seriously consider giving UPEA authorization to do Task 200, which is putting together the specification package and get it out for bid so we can lock in asphalt prices at the current rate.
I guess my question on that would be which are we going to be going out on bids for, the original or the renewed one?
I would hope we would calculate the quantities based on the full package.
The original package?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to have our engineers give us an overview at this point in time? Brian, would you?
Thank you. My name again is Brian Savaline. I'm with UP Engineers and Architects, and you guys have seen me now a couple of meetings. We've been working real close with the road committee chair, township staff, and our staff has really been going through the plan. One thing at the last meeting that we talked about, we weren't sure on the clarification of the scope between the mapping and some of the language that may have been in the millage. So what we've done, we've gone back through, we've looked at all of the information that was in that package, and our plan that we have in front of you does address all of the projects. One thing I want to clarify, just from the public comment when we were listening here, there was some questions in terms of our road was just done and it's in good shape. Those types of roads aren't planned to be completely reconstructed. There's different types of fixes that you do to maintain your road, and it is, when you start seeing cracks in the road, it's important that you seal them to prevent water from getting in, and you get freeze-thaw cycles that beat your roads up faster. So there's different steps, and the road committee did a really good job of going through a lot of those. There's a process where you rate your roads, and they did that. We've gone back through now, and we've been in the process of verifying some of those ratings and looking for some other areas that may not have been addressed and may have been. We're still in the process of doing that. We need to go a little further to get things verified. Things we don't want to miss in this is like the comment about a culvert being plugged, those types of things. When we're going through and doing some reconstruction on the road, we're looking for problems that may have caused those areas to fail. So when we talk about putting together a bid package, those are areas we need to do more in-depth design analysis on, and we're ready to start that. We actually have our survey trucks running right now, ready to get on your roads tomorrow to look at putting this package together. In your package, you do have a breakdown of what we've done. There initially was a 3-year plan. We've actually met with several contractors locally that do work in this area. We've done a lot of research into the potential prices that we may see here this summer, and we are being told right now by them to move. With the gas and oil prices right now, the numbers that I'm hearing, I haven't heard blacktop prices since probably 2002 or 2003 that we're going to see this year if we can get this out. There was actually a community on the west end of the UP did a very similar thing to what we're doing here, and they did go out for bids. They received really good blacktop pricing. We've redone our estimates, and right now we're anticipating we could get 30 to 35% savings from the original cost estimates that were done, which were based on the previous couple of year construction prices for that. So what we've actually now, in talking with the road committee, we've looked at all of those roads that have been targeted, and we have identified the ones that still have utilities that at least need to be considered before moving ahead and paving a road that you want to last 20 to 25 years, only to find out that 6 years from now you got to replace the water main. So you don't want to do that. What we've identified is actually 2/3 of the roads in the millage don't have those issues. So now we're recommending let's do 2/3 of those roads right now, rather than the initial thought was to do a third, a third, and a third. And we've talked to contractors about the scope and how much needs to be done. And the major suppliers in this area feel that it's well within their means to be able to do it, regardless of the contractor that will do it. So we're actually recommending now that we increase this year's reconstruction paving projects, and we would do them in we would actually put out 2 packages. One is going to be for just the chip seal and fixing cracks. Those are different types of contractors than do the overall paving. And then we'll put out a paving contract to get that information. What our goal is here, it's going to take us about a month to get these packages out for bids. So we would be out for bids in early May, and by the end of May we would have real dollars in what it's really going to take and what the advantage is really going to be. Our estimate right now on doing 2/3 of the project, we think you can get it for $3.5 million, which is, I think if you look at previous estimates to do 2/3 of the project, we're looking close to $5 million just to do that. So what that potentially leaves, if it does come that way, and you're gonna see those will be real numbers when we get these bids in. We'll have about $1.5 million left on the current $5 million estimate that we'll get out of the levy that you had, and it's a matter of how we can fit that into those projects that may require utilities. They may not all require utilities. There's still a lot of information that needs to go through. We still need to work with staff and verify that. And there's also some projects that are in the works that fall within those categories. So we're still looking at doing the entire area. We think it's too early still to make a decision that you're gonna replace water or sewer. We still need to look at those. And it's gonna take some time to get those funding ideas out and to see what net effect it'll have on your utilities in terms of any rate increases or not. In the meantime, if we find out when the blacktop prices come in that some of these roads don't really require that, we can add those by change orders if our blacktop numbers come in where it is and even knock out more of this project this year. So our recommendation is let's move forward with that next task. It's almost double the roads that we talked about looking at initially, but we can accomplish that. And we can get a design package out and let's get the real numbers. Let's get the real dollars. We feel real comfortable. We've talked to both of the major suppliers, and their numbers both have been indicated that we would anticipate seeing less than the estimate that you'd see in front of you. So we feel pretty good about it. I'm here for any further questions that you have. But the one thing you need to keep in mind is that this is really just based on oil and gas prices right now and how long you anticipate this being there. What we've heard from them is the people in the industry that know it best get a read for what's moving forward. They think that this will probably hang on until the middle of the summer, and it may last through the year. But the thing that will also happen is that it's going to increase their workload too, because other people are going to be stepping out front to get paving projects completed and take advantage of this. So if we fall back to the fall, what will affect us more isn't going to be the oil prices, it's going to be the demand, and then the increase of labor, the overtime, and if we can get on a contractor's book soon enough at the lower prices, it's really a great opportunity. And this really comes down to a paving contractor. There's two different processes involved to do it. So we've talked to the county. They don't have anything to give you. We've talked about how we're going about it. Our staff has worked with them. They've been supportive. We'll keep them in the process. They'll be involved in the design, and the whole thing is get a quality road built. And right now, it's unfortunate the way that the tax tribunal ruled. They go in opposite direction, but at least now we're gaining by this. And one example, just in terms of the public to look at, is when is the last time you paid $2.20 for a gallon of gas, and what were you paying for it a year ago? You're paying over $3 a gallon. It's that same type of net effect that you're going to see in terms of the prices that come in as we move this forward. So the odds of it staying there, I don't know, maybe, but.
Trustee Pomple.
Again, I want to go back to the question. The bid process we're going out on is going to be on the original package that was presented for the millage, the road reconstruction package that was in the millage, or is it going to be on something different?
It's the same scope, the same number of streets, the same overall mileage. All of those projects are identified in there. What we're looking at right now, we had broke down, I think there was some maps in your project, is this year would be about 2/3 of the overall project will be addressed initially.
Okay, so if when we get the bid package back, if the board decides to go with the original road committee plan for their original roads, that would be the bid process would be.
Yeah, that would be the time. You would have, that's when you're going to award the bigger contract,
okay,
to move forward.
Manager Gerard.
Yeah, it is a bit of a risk, and basically what we're asking you to do is to go in two directions. One is to be prepared for an election in August if we need to, But to go forward with the bid packages to see if we actually realize that 35 to 40% reduction in cost. If that occurs, we're much closer to being able to go forward on the 1.5 mills. We may have to extend it out beyond 15 years. It may have to go 20 years, but I think that's a much easier thing for the residents to look at than going up to 2.9 mils. So that's what we're trying to do, is to put the plate together basically in several different sections. So in May, hopefully by your second meeting in May, you'll be able to look at it and say, this is where we're going. This is where we want to go. You'll have gotten input from the residents. You'll have gotten information out to the residents. If the answer is no, you're already prepared to go for the August election.
Trustee Popple.
So then, basically, the way I look at this is if the bid package comes back lower than what we were looking at, the board would have no problem because we would be able to cover whatever the millage was originally for to start with.
Yeah, right now you would be able to do that, and what we've talked about doing is we'd get with the county and look at that bonding, so you wouldn't be exceeding that amount. Just first phase would stay in there, and then we'd know what's left in terms of either matching or how we use that to finish the rest of the project up moving forward.
So that'll just be another key that we're going to need to see exactly where we stand when it comes back in.
Right, and the only difference from the original project is that the timing would change. And that's what Roger was referring to, because the 2/3 of the roads that Brian's referring to are those roads that have no subsurface work. They don't require any repair to the water or the sewer line. So we do those first in a bunch on a separate contract, because it's not really a paving issue. It's a road maintenance type issue. Seal coating, chip seal versus Huron Woods might be, the tar snakes, whatever. The third part of that would be those that are already planned basically for repair. The utilities, not new utilities, but utilities that are due within the next 10 years for replacement, we would do as part of the road project as well, like we did on Werner. So that's the difference. It's basically a reordering. That's what Roger was talking about. It's a reordering of the project, not a change necessarily of what's being done. It might move, if Dan's road was one that was going to be a total reconstruct in 2017, it may now be in 2018 as a total reconstruct, but still a total reconstruct.
Brian, I noticed that there weren't any Pazer ratings on your the last printout we got. Is that on purpose, or is it because you're kind of changing the way you're looking at them? You said you were going to go out and actually
I think
kind of
what
relook at
you
them.
have is the Pazer ratings are in what we're doing in terms of doing. We're almost looking at what you have in front of you. A reconstruct road is a lower Pazer. There's several numbers that fall into those categories. There's overlays that are more the mid, Pazer rating, and we just tried to clarify your map to you. Those are there, and that map can also be provided. We just did that for clarity. We look at it after we get the ratings. Now we know what needs to be done. So it's a 2 and a 4 are reconstruction, and a 5 and a 6 are still overlays and things like that. So we've gone that far and just kind of broken those up. So what we're trying to show you is what's reconstruction, what's overlaying. There's probably 4 or 5 treatments that we're looking at in the bid package.
Manager Gerard.
As an example, when the original proposal came from the Roads Committee, I'll use Werner Street as an example. Werner Street would have been identified in that package as a total reconstruct, just as it was when we first started Werner Street. But as we got into the construction project, we found that not all of that length had to be a total reconstruct. There were only certain areas where it had to be a total reconstruct, where the subsurface had been damaged by water or by whatever. And I think what UPEA has now done is gone back and looked at those roads that were identified. They physically looked at the roads that were identified as total reconstructs and evaluated to find that maybe not all of that road needed to be a full reconstruction. Yeah, and I think that's some of the difference that's here, is they're coming back with a lower price because they've done an actual physical assessment of gone out and looked at the roads, which the road committee did by Pazer rating. So they're using the Pazer ratings, but then they went out, looked at the road, and said, okay, yes, this segment of the road is a total reconstruct. This segment may only need 3 inches of gravel on top of the existing base before it's paved. So that's some of the difference, and that's where they're coming up with that roughly $3.5 million as opposed to $5 million that was in the in the original plan. So some of those savings are there, and then you put on top of that the current reduced price of the blacktop, which could be as much as probably $500,000 savings just in the blacktop pricing. So that's what we're hoping we see when these bids come back. So you'll have those on your plate for your late May meeting.
So you're looking at the phase 2 or the
Task 2.
200 design and bidding?
Task 200 would get us enough to get these bid packages out. It's gonna take a little more, but we still have something left from task 1 that you approved, and we'll jump ahead and we'll get that information into the package to do
So
that.
that's the 45,000?
Yes.
Trustee Pompey.
One more quick question, and I'm sorry if I keep going back on this, but I mean, I'm noticing that under the township fix, it would say reconstruction, and your fix would be crush and shape. I know that when we talked about this originally from the road committee, their biggest thing is we want to make our roads 20 years. We don't have to worry about it for 20 years. From the fact that this says reconstruction to the fact that yours say crush and shape, is that still going to be a 20-year?
Realistically, a crush and shape and 3-inch pavement is a 20 to 25-year life before you're looking at another surface or some sort of surface treatment. There is, in the first meeting, and I'm going back a little bit here, the original road plan was what was called reconstruction was crush and shape with 2 inches of extra gravel. A true reconstruction is actually taking 2 feet off the road, at least 2 feet, and sometimes as much as 3, putting down new sand, new gravel. That was never really in that original plan. It was more of surface treatments. And when we noticed that, that's why we went to, okay, some of these roads do have problems, and that's where, especially where we have water and sewer projects, we don't want to we're not going to recommend doing just a crush and shape. That could be a 25-year life on something that needs to be replaced a lot sooner than that. So that's why those we're saying let's look at those, but that's really only about a third of them, and it's probably less than a third, but we need to get more in depth on that. So,
and that is the objective, is to come with that 25-year lifespan, basically, in whatever manner we need to do it.
Any further questions? I think a lot of information has been brought out by the engineer and comments here, and that hopefully we've provided more information to our township residents, and now it's up to us to tell them either it's a go or no go for each one of them. Go or no go, to let them start the process of getting some bidding process going, so we get some good hard numbers on both the roads and on the water utilities and that.
That being said, I would make the motion to move into the 200. Is that
Task 200.
Task 200?
Task. We have a motion and a second to move into task 200 to have engineers proceed in that.
Not to exceed $45,000.
Not to exceed 45,000. Any further discussion or questions by board members?
Do you want the clerk to sign that agreement?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions? If not, I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed, so we'll move forward, and our engineers will start their process, and hopefully by May, we'll have some actual hard figures that we can then make some good hard decisions on as to whether it's a go or no go. Manager Gerard.
And you may want to be prepared to schedule a special meeting when that comes in, because it may be slightly after your meeting. I think your second meeting in May is like in the 3rd week of May. But with the folks in the audience, some are probably trying to figure out what the heck they just heard. And for those that might ask you questions, this whole meeting is going to be on YouTube right after this meeting. So if you just go to YouTube and do Marquette Township Board with this date, it'll pop up. So if anybody has any questions, you can refer them to that. They can watch the meeting or this segment of the meeting, or you can again to review what was said, what occurred. So all of our meetings are immediately up on YouTube.
I think a lot of it, even for the board, we're just waiting now to see those hard figures come in as to which direction we can go.
And that is going to be the key.
That'll be the key to the whole thing. Clerk.
Yeah, this action right now has not committed us to anything on this project yet. Just so the residents know that we're getting actual numbers, and probably by mid-May will be where we probably go or no go.
At that point in time, we'll have the word out, and you can come back and give us your thoughts on that at that point in time, because we'll have to make a decision as to which direction we're going to go and how far we're going to go. And that, so it's something that was a sure thing to start with has really turned into something else at this point in time. So we're trying to figure out what it's all about. And that, so, but, if there's no further questions on that, we'll move ahead and we'll go into unfinished business. And the first thing is a letter of support for the Friends of Harlow Lake Recreational Area.
New business?
Pardon?
New business?
New business, excuse me. New business. Manager Gerard.
Very quickly, the Friends of Harlow Lake Recreation Area is a group of enthusiastic participants, basically, that want to be recognized by the state, by the DNR, basically in their Friends program, and that requires an application. And what they're asking for is a letter of support from the township to include in that application, asking that they be specifically designated, and they will, as a result of that, be able to utilize DNR equipment, tools, things such as that, to help maintain and improve the Harlow Lake area. So staff heartily recommends that the board issue such a letter of support and have planner, zoning administrator McCarthy write that.
Clerk Rattari.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the planner to write a letter of support for the Harlow Lake Recreation Area.
Is there support?
Support.
And support. So, only question, is there any future cost to the
No.
township?
No cost to us.
Okay. If not, I'll call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll instruct the planner to move forward with the letter in that. Okay. Next item is a cost proposal for subsurface investigation for the South Vandenboom Road. Manager Art, how would you like to handle this?
Actually, it's Superintendent Page, who is in the audience.
As you might recall, one of the projects we're moving forward on this year is the construction of sanitary sewage collection system on South Vandenboom Road, basically from US 41 to the top of the first hill at Whetstone Village. And as part of that project, we do not know the subsurface conditions, so we have solicited on February 27th a request for proposals from local geotechnical firms for an investigation and report for the proposed South Vandenboom Road low pressure sanitary sewage collection system. And that the information collected is to be used in the design of the system. And 2 proposals were received and are attached. Coleman Engineering Company submitted a proposal for a cost of $6,600, and GEI Consultants of Michigan submitted a proposal for a cost of $87.50, and attached is a recommendation from Pertz and Mandel of North Country Engineering. And in his recommendation, he discussed the fact that one of the proposals called for subcontracting traffic control, which to a professional traffic control specialist, and the cost of that was $9,000, which was greater than the cost of actually doing the work. So we had suggested that Public Works Department would assist in the traffic control. So basically that was eliminated from the Coleman proposal, which left the 2 proposals for the similar services, Coleman Engineering being the low responsive proposal. So I'm requesting that you accept the proposal from Coleman Engineering Company of Iron Mountain for the total estimated cost of $6,600.
Questions, board members? The only question I have is, I saw that differential on the flagging, and I couldn't figure out what it amounts to. Now you're saying the township will do it. Do you have any projected cost factors for what that's gonna cost the township at this point?
Well, it's basically, it's gonna be the same thing that's actually been done on previous projects in the township, only the contractor normally does it. This is not a construction contractor. These guys are, you know, drilling holes, investigating, you know, analyzing the material they pull out of the hole. So they don't typically do traffic control. So that's why they automatically went to the most expensive option, which is hiring somebody else to do it. But typically you just put up it's a road closed, you know, one lane is closed to through, or the whole road is closed to through traffic. So people living on that road could still get in and out because they're only going to be in one lane. And then at the end of the day, we take the barricades down. And also would involve a detour, which is nothing more than putting up signs. So basically, we're just going to put up signs, take down signs.
Really, you're saying there's no physical individual there other than putting up and taking out
Right,
signs?
yeah. And since they're proposing, let's see, a longer day, there may be some overtime involved, but still, it's way less than $9,000, I can tell you that.
Any questions, board members? What is your preference?
I was going to make the motion to, let's see if I need an actual specific wording. Subsurface investigation for South Vandenberg Road, low-pressure sanitary sewage collection system, not to exceed $6,600 for Coleman Engineering.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any questions from board members? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We can move forward on that then.
Thank you.
Okay, that comes down to the manager's report.
I won't take a lot of time. There are really only a couple of items on here that I wanted to bring reference to. The KBSC gas station is moving forward, looking at an opening in May, late May. We are getting a number of contacts, and you heard one of them tonight with regard to the new lighting that's being installed in the township. As you'll recall, the board received a recommendation from the Roads Committee back in 2013, late 2013, to comply with the concerns that the board had with our lighting policy that we have in place. The Planning Commission is currently working on lighting ordinance, which is different than what our policy is. Basically, our lighting policy, which we'd been picking away at for a long time, basically identified various locations where we would supply lighting in a very short manner, where two public roads intersected, where there was a dead end, where there was a cul-de-sac, where there was some kind of an obstruction, whether it was a curve or a rise in the road or anything like that. We were supposed to be supplying lighting. Not all of those had been done, so the road committee came forward with a plan, basically a recommendation to the board to accomplish those. It was about a 2.5-year plan. We're in the last phase of it in 2015. We have $15,000 in the budget to complete that process. But what's happening now is that what is happening at the same time is implementation of the Energy Act, basically, that is now requiring the phase out of incandescent bulbs and replacement with either CFL bulbs or LED bulbs. And what's happening is the BLP is going through replacing all of their old lights. As you heard referenced, they're not as bright, they're not as efficient. They're replacing all those lights under the requirements of the Act with LED lights. They are much brighter. They're the same lights that we have in our parking lot. So that's what is now being installed in Trowbridge. So two things are happening. One is we're completing our lighting plan. Second is it's being switched over to LEDs from incandescent lights. Now, there are lights being installed where there were never lights before, and that's what you're hearing complaints from some residents. I forwarded you several emails that came. One of the residents spoke to you this evening. I suspect you'll be hearing more. The last phase in Trowbridge is being done this year. So as the trees leaf out it may not be as much of an issue, but 9 months out of the year, we don't have leaves. So we may not be finished with this process. We may be having to relocate some lights or possibly even remove some lights. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So, you know, obviously it was not done to irritate the residents or to make it ungainly to be in the township. There were concerns about security. There were concerns about dark roads and no sidewalks and things such as that the board was trying to address. So it wasn't without thought, let me put it that way, but also I'm sure that we'll be in a position to be able to make some corrective actions as well. The other thing that we're getting a lot of comments on is the new waste disposal, in particular the brush and the leaves issue. Superintendent Page, who quickly departed, Superintendent Page and I are still working on that. We are trying to come up with a location. All of the locations we've looked at so far had other issues that came with them. Either they were traffic hazards, or you had to cross congested intersections, or it was property that's in the process of being developed or will be developed within the next year to two. So we're still trying to find a location where we can continue to do that on an whenever you want basis. But as it sits right now, we don't have anywhere to do that, so the residents are being required or asked to use the new drop-off site. It's 4.4 miles from here, basically, to the North Country disposal site. They are only set up right now to receive brush and leaves on the first Wednesday of the month. So we are asking residents to bear with us and be patient. We're trying to find a solution. It may be something like the city of Marquette does, where a certain time in the spring and in the fall we do a pickup. You know, we go around curbside and pick it up. We may have some other options, but we're just not there yet. So we're asking for some patience. Other than that, I didn't have really any other comments unless you had questions.
Board members, questions?
Well, I just want to also comment on the street lighting, and I think manager is correct. I think this is a work in progress for us right now. When the township decided to go with a complete streets mode, I think safety became an issue also with that, and I think that was a part of it. I'm sorry that some of the street lights now are brighter. Unfortunately, I think that these are the ones that, like manager has said, we can fix so they're not obviously shining in somebody's yard or somebody's house. But we do have to realize that we are also the board is very concerned about the safety issue. If anybody's walked down Ontario at nighttime, you can see our concern. It's completely black, and there are many side streets that have no lights at all for a block to 2 blocks. So I think we're just trying to basically move this in a more safety oriented idea, and I think it's a growing thing. We'll I'm sure make changes, but just bear with us a little bit until we get this thing moving.
The street lighting I did want to address, so you talked about that, and the waste drop-off. I don't know what we're going to do about Advocacy Day, because I didn't get an answer on whether we could stay overnight or not, and I found out I can't go anyway, so I didn't know if anybody else was going to go. It needs to be 2 days. That's kind of crazy, because I would definitely hit them on the road issue if I was going to go. But I'm also wondering about the MGT cost study, and you mentioned that we're just about at the end of it. But I have a question observation. When we get this packet, the first meeting of the month, it has our financials in there from February. If we were to get the financials at the second meeting of the month, would we be able to have Marches in there? So we would only be 1 month behind? I don't know how that ties into the cost study, or if it does, and maybe that's a Lois question.
Yeah, it's not really so much the cost study as much as it is the cycle of the billings coming in and the charges that have to be charged back to that month. And you know, they're on a 30 to 45 day cycle basically, and that's why you're seeing that. Let me have Lois take a look at that.
We're approving bills for now, for the financials that have already been done a month before that.
Correct.
So it's always kind of irritated me that we're so far behind in the numbers that we're looking at. You can't even, when we're doing budgeting, you can't make that relation to just 1 month away. It's 2 months back.
Yeah, it has to do with closing out of the month.
I figured that,
The
but
timing.
if we move it back to the second month, but again, it depends on when you're paying bills. It'd just be a little bit more timely, that's all.
I understand.
Real numbers.
I'll have Lois take a look at that.
Following up on Lynn's, on the treasurer's financial. If you look at that, when you're getting is for February.
Correct.
But the deputy treasurer and myself look at this, and we're actually looking at March at this point in time, trying to figure out how everything's going, what money we have to invest, and we'll move it around in that. So what we're looking at is a month further in the future than you people are getting in that, and kind of hard to do some of this because it hasn't cleared all the books yet.
Mhm.
So if you have any questions, either the deputy treasurer or myself can probably answer any questions you have, because we're looking at it on a week-to-week basis, and that the dollars do come in and we have to do something with them and that. And right now, if you look at the dollar amount on it, we have some pretty good sized dollars there. And I've gone to the departments now to find out what their future needs are, so we can invest them, and we don't have that just sitting there and that. And it's a ongoing problem right after the first year when all the tax money comes in, because everything comes in at one time.
Right.
And we're trying to get it all taken care of and moved around, and then try to plan to the future in that. And sometimes it can't be done overnight. It takes a number of weeks to look at everything, and then you have departments have to look at what they're planning on doing. You need 100,000 next month, they need 200,000 3 months down the road and that, and then try to do the investment so they come due at the right time. Well, the only good thing about investing right now is that the amount of interest you get on it is so little that if we have to break a CD, we're not gonna be penalized for it.
It's a whopping 0.3%.
That's about the only positive thing about the whole works in that too, so. I hate to say that, but that's the only good thing I can come up with at this point in time. That's it.
And then the only comment I would make about the advocacy day is we did, when Pete and I met with Larry and the MTA staff, we asked them about, expanding it to a 2-day, and they're just not, they just don't see it. Of course, they don't have to travel from the UP to get there for a 1-day meeting either, by the bus. Those of you that have done it, those of you that have
Try
done
to
it,
look
it's,
presentable
it is a 2 to 3 day process because you have to recover from it. But
The only other thing is on the ice rink warming facility, I see we purchased a small Zamboni. Where is that being kept at this point?
well, we haven't picked it up yet, and yes, we did. We picked up a used Zamboni, so we will have equipment to resurface the ice with. And actually, we picked up 2 of them. It comes with a spare for parts. So we actually got it from Ironwood. Ironwood bought a new Zamboni to replace the one that they had at their indoor arena, and we picked it up from them on a bid process. $2,000 is all that it was, along with the with another one for spare parts, which we'll be probably picking up within the next 2 weeks and bringing it back here. Initially, it's going to be stored, and it will be kept at the warming hut once that's completed, and we have the landscaping that done. It will be in the garage portion of it there.
I think the other thing is on the kiddie area. I'm sure the breakup is going to we'll have to wait until the breakup is done before we can start on the kiddie part.
Yep, we have the equipment being shipped. What we're waiting on right now is, as you said, for the ground to soften up a little bit so we can pull the equipment that's currently there out. The Lions Club is going to take that and reallocate that to another park.
Any further questions for the manager at this point in time? Now we'll move on to the second public comment from the audience. Anyone would step to the podium, please? Your name and address again?
It's John Smythe, also known as Mayor of Huron Woods. That gets Mr. Swally a little upset. Anyway, just one quick thing here in regards to Randy here and the rest of the group. As far as the lights are concerned, trust me, we have taken care of our own lights in Huron Woods. Call the board power light. We'll get right on it. They get right on it. The new lights are in our cul-de-sac, which has been very dark because it's been burnt out. You can see the children waiting for the bus. From a safety standpoint, it's the right thing. And there is a difference in the luminous or whatever the brightness is. So again, it's working fine in our area, okay?
It's a very, very white light.
Yes, it is. In fact, I asked a couple of residents that, did you notice that light increased, and they're very happy about it. So, But again, having children, that's important. The only other quick thing from our previous thing is they're working through this, and you guys too. You know, why it did so well on the millage this time was because you get the seniors, which we represent the seniors, and most of all of us are on fixed income. With fixed income, when you start increasing the millages, it becomes a real, you know, do we want that or do we want to wait to another time? That's what we get. And so, but that decision on the first one, great. Now I'm agreeing we got to be careful what we're doing and how you're approaching it to get that project underway. And, you know, the roads are important here in the township. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Anyone else?
I'll just write on your.
I'm Bob Lance. I live at 2663 Montgomery Street, and I was really happy to support the millage for the roads. It was a real transparent process that took place. Unfortunately, if I'm looking tonight now, I may live where it's going to be eliminated. So it does change the ballgame a little bit in terms of, do I want to continue to support even though I drive on other roads? So I agree with the idea of you need to bring it back to the voters if you're going to change this. You'll still probably get the support that you need, but at least you'll have that transparency that you take a lot of pride in, okay? Second thought I have is, in terms of getting the loan for future sewer and water development, I was thinking, I don't know what the tax tribunal effects have been on any loans that the township has now, but obviously there's a lot less revenue coming in, and are we going to be able to meet those obligations, let alone take on yet another loan? Oops, I'm sorry.
That's
Getting
it.
worked up.
It works.
I guess my question is, for those people who will be getting water and sewer work done in front of their house, are they going to have additional costs that they may not anticipate on top of the millage? Or will it be like some of the sewer this past summer was optional to whether you hook up or not? And that's a nice feature, knowing that in the future you can hook up if you want. I think it was disappointing to read in the paper on the state election, we're going to do this with all the roads, but we got to wait 2 years because we got to pay for all this stuff we did before. And so I hope we don't find ourselves getting into that same scenario here where we make a lot of commitments and then later have to come and ask for some revenue to help support some things that we did. So again, I appreciate the meetings. I would like to see us come back to the voters for a vote on that if we're going to change the project at all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further comments from the public? If not, we'll go in for additional comments from board members.
I've said enough things.
I think one question I have is what,
No.
well, you got another comment?
No,
No, I said I've said enough.
Oh, you said, okay. From Bob Lance, the comment he gave, and I think it probably is something that some of the residents probably have not thought about, is what effect the tax tribunal dollars have in effect on current loans that we have out there.
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape. From the standpoint of the actual losses that we have, we are going to have continued growth. I mean, we have new projects that are coming on. You know, will they be challenging their taxes? I suspect that they will. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. But as it sits right now, we had planned basically for like these buildings. We had planned these buildings in a manner we did not go back and ask for millage, and we've got this budgeted going forward. So that's a given. The main question that Mr. Lance raised was about the subsurface work that's being done, the utility work. The utility work that was planned as part of the original project was not additional. That was planned utility work. So that was not something we were going out for loans for. That's normal repair and maintenance type stuff. What we were referring to is that one of the things that UPEA recommended was to try and reduce that $7.5 million cost, was to try and dovetail with some additional extension of new utilities. Dan's absolutely right. That means more loans. So, I mean, that would have been a payment that would have had to been made. And the theory is that would come out of our existing utilities fund balance, our enterprise funds fund balance, and I was opposed to that. I don't want to run that fund balance down in case we have another winter like we had 2 years ago. You know, we don't want to be in a situation of not being able to fix and, you know, and respond to those kinds of things. So I'm not in favor of doing that. And that's what I said. I'm not in favor of going in that direction unless you folks say, yeah, we want to increase our millage and go forward.
Clerk Rattari.
The only comment I have is I just received a brochure. It should be in each of the board members' box. There's a MTA on the road coming to Escanaba May 21st. And there's some good topics there. And I plan on attending. I did not go to the state township meeting, but I try to get some education for the year, so I plan on going to that one. So if any of the board members plan on attending, there's an early bird rate. You know, we get a little bit cheaper, so if you could get that into Lois, that would be appreciated. Save some money, and it's just a one-day thing. You don't have to stay overnight. So,
Any further comments from the board? Well, I only have one thing left to do and ask for adjournment.
Support.
That was quick and fast. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:45.
okay.